I apologize in advance for any weird whirling or whooshing noises you may hear. I'm running the dishes in the dishwasher. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Big City B. I'm B for those of you who are just joining me for the first time. For today's review, I'm going to be reviewing Where The Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I know I'm very far behind on all the hype on this book, but like I said last week, I'm trying to catch up, and I am... Ooh, you almost got me. Stick through to the end to see if I like this book or not. On to some of the basics for this book. The genre of this book is going to be historical fiction with, I would say, a light dusting of murder mystery. Maybe just mystery. Murder mystery. There are also a few trigger warnings in this book, so make sure you check out the description below to see what those are. Alrighty, on to your summary. For years, rumors of the Marsh girl have haunted Barkley Cove, a small, quiet town on the coast of North Carolina. So, in late 1969, when the town hotshot Chase Andrews is found dead, the locals immediately suspect Kaya Clark, the so-called Marsh girl. Your characters for this book. We have Kaya Clark, who is the main character. Then we have Chase Andrews, who is the town hotshot, and Tate, who is another local boy of Barkley Cove. For track 2 characters, we have Jody Clark, who is Kaya's brother, Sheriff Ed Jackson, who seems to have his own prejudices against the Marsh people, the people who live in the marsh. Jumpin', who owns and runs a wharf where people can get local bait and gas for their boats, and his wife Mabel. For track 3 characters, we have Officer Joe, who is the second officer investigating the case of Chase Andrews, and a local poet, Amanda Hamilton. The first thing that I really liked about this book was just the imagery and how clear and beautiful it was. I could really easily picture the marsh and just that sense of beauty in nature when it's untouched and just wild. One of the passages that I felt really embodied this imagery that I wanted to share with you is this one. She wandered to the lagoon where early light caught the glimmer of hundreds of dragonfly wings. Can you imagine that? Can you see it? Can you just see the early golden hour light hitting just these beautiful rainbow of dragonfly wings? If you've never seen a dragonfly before, they can be beautiful and their wings are huge. So they're just like little mini stained glass windows. It just brought me right back to my childhood when one day in my grandparents' backyard we caught a dragonfly, and it just sat on my grandma's hand for like a good 5 minutes, and we just like inspected it, and it was this beautiful kind of royal blue color. I love it. The second thing that I liked about this book was the incorporation of poetry. I know in my last book review for My Sister the Serial Killer, I also talked about poetry in that book as well, so it seems like I'm on a little bit of a poetry kick. But I just felt like the poetry in this book added so beautifully to the surroundings of where we were in the marsh, and whether that be Amanda Hamilton's poetry or the poetry that Tate recites, especially the poem about where he will meet the white canoe of my dear. I just thought that was beautiful imagery. Also, just in that setting, like thinking of the marsh, it just all really works. Also, this poetry adds a level to the inner lives of the characters who recite the poem. So a lot of the time in this book, the dialogue is very plain or just really gets right to the point. But every time that the poetry is recited, it gives another inner glimpse of how rich these characters' lives are. I also like that the whole poem of the White Canoe is there to show us that poetry can sometimes reveal parts of our life that we may not even know yet, which, again, beautiful. Just beautiful. The third thing that I liked was all of the callbacks to nature. Throughout the book, we get to see the scientific side and just how nature interacts with each other. And I really liked that. As a little kid, I would play in my backyard and look for treasures and find beautiful rocks. So I understood and could totally relate to where Kaya's head was at when she was going around the marsh and finding feathers and birds' nests. I definitely had a whole little box of treasures that I found in my backyard and in my grandparents' backyard, so I can only imagine the treasures that she would find in the marsh. The fourth thing that I liked was the guess who done it until the very end. And for the second part of this, what I liked, I'm gonna insert a spoiler slide. Up until the very end, I totally could have believed that it was Tate or Jumpin who had killed Chase. First, we have Jumpin saying that he would give that boy a whooping if he ever came near Kaya again, so that made me think, oh, it could have been Jumpin. And then we have Tate, who, one of the quotes that his father's always said was that he should do whatever it takes necessary to defend a woman. So either one of them, I thought it might have been them who had pushed Chase Andrews off the fire tower. Moving on to what I didn't like about this book. Not a gosh darn thing. There wasn't anything that I would change about this book. I wouldn't touch a little hair on its head. So you know what that means. Time to head on over to what Goodreads thought about this book. The first thing that Goodreads didn't like about this book was that it was too descriptive. Let's let that sink in. A couple reviews ago in Daisy Jones and the Six, we were told it wasn't descriptive enough, so can't please everyone, I guess. But they said that there was too much description about the nature and the marsh, which there was a lot of description of it, but it was all beautiful description and also really informed why Kaya acts the way that she does. So I thought that was all very necessary to the book, and usually I hate when authors are over descriptive and over tell anything and could have condensed multiple pages just into one page, but I didn't feel this way at all about Where the Crawdads Sing. So I disagree again. The second thing that Goodreads didn't like was they didn't find that it was believable that Kaya could have lived in the marsh and people would have been so unwilling to help her and be so condescending towards her. So let's for a minute remember that it's the 1960s. Really, we even started as early as 1950s. Let's not let our modern day privilege cloud our visions of how that time period actually was. Segregation was still huge and going on in the South, as well as just the emanating response that anyone different than you was bad. This is still present today. Anyone who's different than you, who's poorer than you, who doesn't look like you, who has a different religion than you, has different political thoughts than you. There are people who will completely ignore you and think of you as bad or wrong or dirty. The untouchables. You can't touch them. They're disgusting. So that wasn't unbelievable to me. She was in ratty clothes that didn't fit her. She was probably dirty from digging around in the marsh all day. Her family was poor. These are all believable things that people of a higher society or middle class would have completely ignored, and only the others were there to actually help her, such as Jumpin' and Maple. The third thing that Goodreads didn't like is another spoiler, so here is your second spoiler slide for this episode. They didn't find it believable that Kaya could have killed Chase. They didn't believe that this girl from the marsh who studied predators, watched how insects ate each other, was always very good at hiding from people, was able to cover up and kill Chase Andrews. Sounds to me like she was studying murder from an early age. And anything that she did, it just goes back to nature and how she had watched and studied the marsh. So that also wasn't unbelievable to me. Also, she was never gonna feel safe as long as Chase Andrews was alive. She's right that if she had gone to report him at any time, she would have been, again, the outsider, the crazy one, the marsh girl who reported this golden boy to the police officers, and there was no way that they were gonna believe her. So, do I think she should have killed him? No. But do I think that he had it coming? Heck yeah. Yeah, I do. Now that we've finished up those Goodreads reviews, let's go on to some beautiful quotes from this book. Your first quote is, I wasn't aware words could hold so much. A sentence could be so full. Ah, beautiful. And I feel like as readers or just anyone who has an appreciation for language, that is such a beautiful sentiment, and that sentence in itself just holds so much. Your second quote is, "Nature had nurtured, tutored, and protected her when no one else would." This whole quote just really puts it out there, how much nature had an impact on Kaya, how much it taught her. Truthfully, it was the only thing that was really there her whole life. Everyone else abandoned her at some point, so that was heartbreaking and beautiful. Your third and final quote. "His dad told him many times that the definition of a real man is one who cries without shame, reads poetry with his heart, feels opera in his soul, and does what's necessary to defend a woman." I love this because this is what we should be teaching all of the young men, and not those toxic masculinity traits where it's not okay to cry, you shouldn't like art, all of those things are sissy and girly. This is the quote now to teach all boys growing up. So I want all of you to now memorize this quote and teach it to whatever kids you have now or in the future. Thank you. Our society will thank you. Also, I like how this quote doesn't say to protect a woman, because a woman can protect herself, but to defend her when it is necessary. So I like that. Finally, would I recommend this book? Yes, 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 yes. I would 100% recommend this book. I am so glad that I read it. I cried, my heart ached. I was just in this beautiful, wonderful world that Delia had written, and I think everyone should read it. It was just lovely. There are so many poems throughout the book that I wanted to quote to you guys, but this review would literally be like half an hour long if I was quoting every single poem that was in there, but they were all so perfect. Also, I really liked Amanda Hamilton's poems, and you'll all find out why if you choose to read this book, which I 100% recommend you should do. I also devoured this book. It took me 2 days to read this book, and on the second day, I stayed up until 2 a.m. when I had to work the next morning at 8 a.m. because I could not put it down. I did not want to stop reading and being enveloped in this world. So that's my ultimate good sign of a good book. That's all I have for you guys today. Go ahead and leave your favorite childhood memory down in the comments below. What little treasures did you find in your backyards, or things that you thought were precious that other people might have just thought were junk? If you liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed for next week's book review. Alrighty, I'll see you all next week. All the best always. Bye.